Hello everyone. This is a fourth text in contemporary literature, The Only Story by Julian Barnes. Point to ponder about the author Mayuri Pandya, character information by Hinaba Sarvaiya, plot overview by Nirav Amrelia, themes of novel by Bhavna, and article reading Mayuri Pandya. Key facts. The novel published in 1st February 2018, the author Julian Barnes, originally published in English, chapterization in the three part 1, 2 and 3. The genre of the novel is memory novel and narrator is the protagonist Paul and setting in the outside London 1960 and the blurb of the novel. Would you love the more and suffer the more, or love the less and suffer the less? That is, I think, finally the only real question. First love has lifelong consequences. By Paul doesn't know anything about that at 19. At 19, he is proud of the fact his relationship uh, flees in the face of social convention. As he grows older, he demands the placed on Paul by a love become a far greater than he could possibly have foreseen. The tender and wise, the only story is deeply moving, a novel by one of the fiction's greatest mapped of the human heart. About the author, Julian Barnes, he was born in Leicester, England, in 19 January 1946. He was educated at the City of London School and then graduated in modern language. Julian Barnes is the author of 19 novels, 13 novels, including The Sense of Ending, which is won 2011 Booker Prize for fiction. The Noise of Time and The Noise of Time. He has also written a three book of short stories, four collection of essay, and two books of non-fiction. Nothing to be frightened of, and the Sunday Times number of one bestseller, Level of Life. In 2017, he was awarded the Legion d'Honneur. Award he received. Bond has received 2011 Prize and Magnum Award and many other awards he was received for his writing. And there is the official side of the author. So this is the official side. Here is the biography of the author. Then home, his books, and also it was provided the contact of writer, his address and other things. So further character introduction, I would like to call Hinaba Sarvaiya.
So, I would like to introduce the character of this novel. These are the major character of this novel. Paul Robert. Paul Robert is the protagonist of the novel. When he tells the story, that time he was 69 to 70 years old, and he tells the story of his youthful days when he was a 19 years old young boy. And Susan McLeod is another female protagonist of this novel. She is a tennis player. Robert Paul also a tennis player, and Gordon McLeod is a husband of Susan. He is a golf player, and he was a very violent person, and he don't like to went to church. he interested to read news. And Susan McLeod and Gordon McLeod to have two daughters, that is the Clara McLeod and Martha McLeod. Clara McLeod, also known as Miss Annas in university names, that uh, and Martha McLeod is also known as the Mystery. And Martha McLeod is also physically like her mother, tall and pretty. And Clara McLeod's nature of that, she is a very friendly. Another Paul's Robert's friend, university friends is Eric, Ian, Bernie. The four are close friend, and Eric is a close friend of the Paul, and truth trusted friend. And Eric tells the story of Ashley. Ashley is the American woman, and Ashley is beloved of Eric, and Ashley is not believe in religious things, and Eric also believing the religious things, and she is not a member of established church. And Anna is a good friend of Paul, and she is also a lawyer. And another, that is the Susan, that is a John, is a sister of Gerald, and Susan also like Gerald. And Gerald also a good tennis player. And end of the end of the novel, middle of the novel, is the starting of the novel, the John also introduced to Paul to Gerard was died. And Alec is a good friend of Susan, and Susan tell told to Alec told to Susan as the Sue darling. Another minor character in this novel, that is Paul's mother. Paul's mothers are presented a very vital role in this novel. Paul's mother tells to Paul to meet the Christine and Virginia and date her. And Jack is another minor character. Jack is the father of Gordon. Jack also a doctor, and he is tells to he ambitions to be her his son. Gordon become the painter, but Gordon not become the painter. And Mrs. Dyer is a maid of Susan's home, and Candy is the beloved girlfriend of Paul. Uncle Ham and Aunt Florence is the connect. This Aunt Ham is the uncle of Susan. That the uncle Ham is abused when Susan in the 10 years old. That time she's parents died. That time she lived in Uncle Ham's house. Then that times Uncle Ham's abused her. That another is Morris is the good friend of Susan. His work from the Renault News. My learning outcome of this novel, that is pursuing one's own passions can lead to a more fulfilling and successful life. I have connected the Gordon's life and Paul's. And when he is in the end of the the Paul decide to choose her career and ambitious to career and to become the take a degree of lawyer, that and being helpful and supportive to those in need, whether they are relatives or strangers during difficult times, can improve the well-being. In the end of the story, we can see that the Paul are not take care of Susan when she was in all time, and not facing of amnesia and forgiveness. So that time don't Paul take not take to take care of the Susan, right? and being aware of basic safety guidelines can help to protect the lives of the elders. It means when we know that the Susan also feeling some the abuse by her uncles, that is the domestic violence. That's law we can see that the Susan are suffering that we know that learning to the some basic law we can to aware of that, and believe in the historical records in the written form allow for a better understanding of the past and its impact onto the present. It's very important to believe in the historical record. Cross checking is very important. Thank you. Now, further further discussion, the plot summary. I would like to need a umbrella.
Hello. So, hello, I am Nirav Amrelia, and in this presentation, I have taken the part of the plot summary of the novel. This is the only story, and I have cited some page number here also. See, here you will see. First, let me give you a brief introduction of. So, in the front page, when where the novel starts, so there is the definition of the novel given by Samuel Johnson. So, in his Dictionary of English Language, published in 1755, Johnson describes the novel as a small story, generally of love, or a short story, generally of love. So, here, how the definition is pertinent with this novel or the plot, we will find it. And another thing, before starting the summary, I would like to tell you is that I have taken the page number here, and it is of the 2018 publication of Penguin Random Books that Jonathan Cape has first published. It is the thing. Basically, the storyline is distributed in three parts only. So there is nothing like chapterization, but only merely three parts are given. So part one, part two, part three. That way it is written. And another thing that is the basically what we find is that when three narrations are found at the same time, so majority in first part we find this first person narration that I, that is Paul Roberts, he describes what happens to him, or rather he becomes more subjective and less objective. So what incidents affects on him, it is being described by him. So the novel starts with the rhetoric question: would you rather love the more and suffer the more, or love the less and suffer the less? Finally, I think finally the only real question. This is the only real question. But at the end, what we find is that the question is never resolved. So there is no answer at all. So it is unanswerable question. As he tells. Okay. So the question then is: do all these retellings bring you closer to truth of what happened, or move you further away? I am not sure. Even now, he is giving his introduction as an unreliable narrator. So and he quotes also that okay, I am not reconstructing the past, but I am reimagining it. So he's reimagining. He is not reconstructing the past. So here it is also to be remembered, because when something is there in one's memory, we fail to understand proper things. Why? Because one is narrating, and one might save himself from being some kind of scapegoat or thing like that. What wrong things he has done. Now he is telling to his narrator, Paul Roberts. So this thing we have to keep in mind. We have to take all the things with a pinch of salt, with a pinch of grain, while reading the novel. Such novels like then the time more than 50 years ago. Now the timeline is given. So right now he is 79 to 80 years old, and more than 50 years ago. So nearly like 29, yes, 19 years old. He is 19 years old when he is in the second year of his graduation, second or third year in between. The place about 15 miles south of London. So it is the setting given here. Don't mind, meteorology will play no part in my story. So here it is the deconstructive sentence, like it breaks though. So we are having this genre of post structuralist novel. So first he gives all this thing that how my village, there is only the mention of village with capital V. It is also mentioned that how my village looked when I was 20 years younger, but then he puts this sentence that meteorology or the study of this land and will play no part in my story. So there is no importance at all, but a bit of importance is there of law, court, police, and all the things we will find along. Yes. And here first how he comes in contact with Suzanne. Suzanne, this MacLeod. She looked at me sideways, but what about your reputation? Now, he, being a young person, having no practical knowledge of the world by experience, he thinks that, okay, I have to be reputed. Being a young person, what was there in his mind, in Paul Roberts' mind, that he thinks I have to be reputed by society. And by getting the reputation, I must have a wife or a girlfriend or something else like this. So first we find the story moves from the love of romance to the responsibility. So when romance comes, everyone is feeling enjoying. Okay, I will have these good things with this person. We will go to cinema. We will go like this. We will go to woods. Everything comes there. And at the end, when the responsibility comes, when Susan turns mad, insane a bit, so mad woman in the attic is also given there. The reference comes, and this Scarlet Woman reference comes also, like which woman who this performs adultery or adulteress. Here the word for her cougar, cougar, cougar is described for her, and a toy boy for our narrator, this Paul Roberts. So it is that, and as I said, I drove Mrs. McLeod home, and nothing happened, and again, except that this depends on what you mean by nothing, not a touch, not a kiss, not a word, let alone a scheme or a plan. So here he gives a bit of his sexual accounts, that how he came in contact sexually or physically, he came in contact with Susan McLeod, and how Susan McLeod does not deny this kind of advancements from Paul. So, what words might you reach for nowadays to describe a relationship between a 19-year-old boy? Now he is in the past memory, he is in the past, a 19-year-old boy, or nearly men. So, in adolescence, adulthood, he is speaking about, and a 48-year-old woman. Perhaps those tabloid terms, cougar. Here is the term cougar. You see, cougar is a slang which is used for a woman, which is like the woman who is a more aged woman, like our Susan, 48-year-old, and the woman is seeking sexual or physical relationship with a much younger boy. So the term is a slang for cougar and toy boys. Toy boy, like we are having this, but such words weren't around then, even if people behaved like that in advance of their naming. Yes. For instance, I remember lying in bed one night. So he gives how he feels his youthfulness in terms of his physical nature, in sexuality. So it is that erection happens to him and without any reason, and he gives his account like this. I lean across and kiss her. Now, how he first kisses her. When I lean across and kiss her in front of whatever interested pedestrians Wimpole Street contains. So now here one thing is that now first when he meets Susan, he is very free-minded person, that he does not care about society. He just focused on the Susan McLeod. But when in the end, when Susan becomes mad and when Susan is taken in the ambulance by this where mad people are kept like this asylum, made asylum. So there, Susan wants to tell, okay, this person is having some kind of relation of me, but he shuts his mouth. No, she is mad. Don't believe her. He tells this, that now first he is free, then he tells that okay, Susan is not free. And he calls Susan free spirit with damaged soul. Free spirit with damaged soul. That she has free spirit. That she distinguished from her played. What was the word like? Yes, play around generation, and but she is free spirit, and that is why I like her. And but again, he does not like this also. I was going to say girlishness, and perhaps that is more what mean. Yes, she is older. Yes, she knows more about the world, but in terms of what shall I call it, the age of her spirit, perhaps we aren't that far apart. Now, on what grounds she likes Susan McLeod? It is this, that her cheerfulness, her free spiritedness, her playfulness, he likes her. You aren't suggesting I go into politics. Now some reference of politics comes, the this Samaritans comes, communist comes. Suppose this Gordon MacLeod, the husband of Susan MacLeod, the Gordon MacLeod, he does not like the communist. Even when he plays crossword and he gives the clue of some words that this Paul should also join him in playing. But then the talk goes on politics and they come on the communist and socialist. Then Gordon becomes suddenly a kind of very angry and he says, furious, that okay, the communists should be shot at the first sight. So the political reference is also there. And here, you are not suggesting I go into politics. Here, he speaks by. It is spoken by this our Paul Roberts, the narrator. You are Gordon MacLeod while playing the crossword. You aren't suggesting I go into politics. I am incredulous. I despise politicians. So I hate politicians who all strike me as self-important creeps and smoothies. Not that I have ever met a politician, of course. So it is the conversation between McLeod and this Gordon McLeod and Paul Robert goes on. So now it's exactly because people like you don't go into. Now it is spoken by Susan, that she tells to our narrator that it's exactly because people like you don't go into politics that we are in the mess we are. Susan insists. At first impression of this our narrator, Susan thinks he is very good man and he should be in the politics. So that is why she speaks this. My parents enjoyed television. Now see, these lines are coming, this is the whole paragraph is given, but I have taken the first line only to explain only. Like the thing is come that how the people, how the commune people of the village acted while the war was going on back then. But now people did not take any kind of interest in any political or social matter. But what did they do is this: my parents means the narrator's parents, the Paul Roberts parents. My parents enjoyed television sitcoms only. They were focusing on the enjoyment where the world is like firing behind, and they are enjoying the things, but were made uneasy by satire. So anything satirical come on the government, on the power, they were made uneasy. Okay, we don't want to go into this. Let us be enjoyable only right now. So isn't it strange? She muses. My mother died of cancer when I was 10. Yes, this account is very good. See, in running talk, Susan and Paul Roberts both are talking to each other. And what happens that once Susan is in musing way, she tells, okay, when I was 10 or 11 years older, my mother died. And my parents are also dead. Like my mother died of cancer when I was 10, and I only ever think of her when I am cutting my toenails. So it is just casual thing. She is like used to it now. Okay, my mother died. She has accepted it with ample amount of logic. Now what happens? Then the reference of comes this Uncle Humphrey and Aunt Florence. This reference comes that how Uncle Humphrey abused her sexually. We can say like Uncle Humphrey when party kiss. This word he uses party kiss. So what is party kiss? Then Uncle Humphrey comes when Susan was sent. Susan and her brother was sent to this Uncle Hump's home. So what happens at night when they are going to sleep? Then Uncle Humph comes and sit beside her on her bed, and then he tells him in see the narration comes like he is having boozed off or dozed off we can say, and his mouth is drinking of the cigars. So these things are there, and what happens? Uncle Humph tells, "Do you know dear the what party kiss is?" Then Susan does not reply at all, and she knows what is going to happen next to her. This is the thing, and then Uncle Humph kisses her hard, and it rams like his tongue in her mouth when only she was this 11 or 12, and he continues these things until she is 16. So you see this timeline 11 to 16, so 5 to 6 years she has to feel this physical abuse, and this is why she believes that this is made me frigid. So this word comes, that is what she speaks, that this is what made me frigid. And every summer he did it till I was about 16. Yes, but I'm remembering the past, not reconstruct. Here it is spoken by the narrator. But I am remembering the past, not reconstructing it. I'm not trying to spin you a story. I'm trying to tell you the truth. Everyone in the village, every grown up, or rather every middle aged person, seem to do crosswords. My parents, their friends, John Gordon MacLeod. So it is the like we can say shallow reference of just people being lazy and not taking interest in politics and war that was going on around when Winston Churchill, reference of Winston Churchill also comes. And does Mrs. MacLeod do the crossword? Now again he jumps in the MacLeod house where Gordon MacLeod is sitting. And again our Paul Roberts and Gordon MacLeod, they both are engaging in the conversation about crosswords. So does now Paul asks, so see, feminism, tint of feminism is seen here. So does Miss MacLeod do crossword? Mrs. MacLeod, who? Susan MacLeod. I asked. Paul asked, already knowing the answer, because he was quite aware of the nature of this Gordon MacLeod, that he is quite this patriarchal person. Uh, who could play at this game? I thought he was aware. The puzzle, he replied with some archness. The puzzle, he replied. He means Gordon MacLeod replied with some archness is not really female. So he firmly believes, okay, these logical things are not for female at that time. And my mom does the crossword. Now our narrator tells, okay, but my mother does that. My mom does the crossword with my dad. Joan does the crossword. Even Joan, the sister of her, Gordon MacLeod. She also does. He lowered his chin. Now what happens? Like he does this, he lowered his chin and looked at me over his spectacles like this. Suppose I am Gordon MacLeod and I am doing crosswords, and then I look him like this. So he looks like this. Then let us posit, perhaps, that the puzzle is not the domain of the womanly woman. What do you say to that? See the word womanly woman. So even if a woman having the qualities of having her own qualities, like she is brave, she is very sturdy, but now the male will think, okay, it is the manly quality. It can only be possessed by men. So it is the wrong interpretation of Gordon MacLeod, and he is very like this. Our narrator calls him the bastard. And why? Because he beats time and again beats Susan MacLeod. Like he pulls her hair and thumps her head in the door, and he breaks his two the front teeth also. Yes, I have been educated. Now, here, what happens? Like now, further the Paul Robert goes that he's giving his self account. Yes, he's comparing himself with Susan in terms of life experience. Like I have been educated at school and university, yet in real terms, I know nothing. Susan barely went to school. Now, Susan barely went to school, but I was a university educate. She knows so much more. I have got the book learning, so general term like book learning and life learning. Like I have got the book learning, she has got the life learning. Okay, but now it is the we can say impression of Susan MacLeod on the soul or psyche of our narrator Paul Roberts. But anyway, Martha and Clara, the two daughters, Martha and Clara, Miss G, it means Miss Grumpy is Martha. She is grumpy. She is not behaving well with our narrator. This and Miss NS, Miss not so grumpy, and she is very good with our narrator. Clara, Miss Grumpy and Miss Not So Grumpy. Okay. If I was uneasy with girls generally, I was the more so with ones who were a bit older than me, later on ones whose mother I was in love with. He gives. I never reflected on our age difference. Age felt as irrelevant as money. Now see, in youth, he does not care about money, food, because he was quite in frenzy mode. He was in like utopian mode due to his hormones and all the things. So he does not care about money. He does not care about age. He just only wants the freedom of life. But this happens. But eventually, this freedom turns into the responsibility, and he remorse. He does not regret. So we are having these two words: remorse and regret. So in regret, you can mend the things. Whatever you have messed up, you can mend it again. But what happens in remorse? You are not able, because you cannot go in the past and do the things unless you are having the time machine. Okay. She was almost exactly the same age as your mother, and you went see now bed with her. So now he gives himself this account. It's true that I wanted to sleep with Susan. I wanted to sleep with Susan and did so many times. Now he gives his further meticulous information that how I enjoyed or slept with him, her, and did so many times, and so for a number of years thought of killing God and MacLeod. Why these things are coming in his head? To killing of, not out of that, okay, if I will be there with his wife, Gordon MacLeod's wife, that is Susan, then Gordon will be the hindrance. But no, but he thinks that this Gordon is very bad person. He beats my love, my Susan, and these things. So I have to kill him. But he does not do any such thing like this. But that is another part of the story. That is the another part of the story. He gives the full account in the or the second part of how he is very cruel and beating person for the Susan. Not that prehistory doesn't matter. Not that prehistory doesn't matter. No, it is not only so that we have to consider people's present condition and judge them, but present history also matters. Indeed, I think prehistory is central to all relationships. So, indeed, I think prehistory that the person is having, prehistory, present, and the futuristic ideas is central to all relationships, as you believe. Yes. So here is the end of the first part. We are having three parts. The first part ends here, like this. There was no exact moment of leaving. Now they both plan to leave the village and go settle in the London. Henry Street they settle in, and this Susan does is very meticulously, or we can say very detailfully, and she does not leave a mark that we are leaving. She just gradually moves away with him. But what our Poles do, does is that this he writes a small letter in his we can say information. We were together under the same roof. That is for 10 or more years. So yours, Paul. So here the letter is, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes. Scroll down. Hmm. So here is the letter. The small letter is written by Paul here, like which didn't stop me trying to mark it with a brief letter to my parents. So at the end, we are getting the letter. What is written in the letter is, dear mom and dad. Our Paul writes to his parents, dear mom and dad, I am moving up to London. I am moving up to London. I shall be living with Mrs. MacLeod. So clear cut things are given to their parents, his parents. I shall send you an address as and when. As and when I will send you an address. Yes. Yours, Paul. So here the novel ends with this, but I can't. We were together under the same roof, that is, for 10 or more years. So for 10 or more years, they stay under the same roof. And afterwards, I continued to see her regularly. In later years, less often, when she died. Now we are being presaged by the narrator that she dies. She dies when we were living. But how? Now it is kind of like cinematic thing. So in novel, in written form, the cinema is coming, like how the cliffhanger is put. by the author or the narrator. Like say, I continued to see her regular in later years, less often when she died. Now, as a like curious reader, we find this thing within us, like how she dies, what happens to her, and a few years ago, and this is how I would remember it. All if I could, but I can't. See, now this problematic thing. If I could, but I can't. He says this is how I remember it, but I cannot. Then how can we rely on his narration? This should also be seen. Now here the first part ends. Now the part two begins. So it ranges from page number 87, as I mentioned that publication, to 158. First person narration from the page number 87 to 103. So here two types of narration are found. The first person narration goes from page number 87 to 103, and the second person narration starts from page number 104 to 158. Page number 104 to 158. These things. Susan's running away fund content. So Susan was preparing for a running away fund on which they bought some small house with two rooms on the attic, and they are giving it on the lodge. They are giving on the rent, we can say, and renters are also coming. But when one renter leaves, the friend of this our narrator Paul comes. That name is Eric. And what happens after Eric comes and he tells, okay, your wife is drinking, but now then. Paul says, "My wife does not drink, or this Susan does not drink. She is very disdainful towards such things that even her husband drinks, Gordon drinks, but she does not like that. So my Susan cannot drink such things. Whiskey and sherry, Sherry. The spelling is given there. Sherry they call it, and that is what. And this Eric put some marks on the bottle. So here this much is filled into it. But now it is drunk by Susan, and the mark is being remaining there. Like I painted my study a somber dark green. Here's someone what good wordplay is coming. Like I painted my his study room when new house in London, when she and Susan moves, or rather we can say elopes with each other. I painted my study a somber dark green after Barney told me. Barney is one of the friends of our narrator, Paul, told me that the labor wards where these obstetricians are practicing the delivery of a child. Hospitals were that color to calm expectant mothers. Labor pain is also there. I hoped it might have the same effect on my own laborious hours. Now, my own laborious hours that he works very hard for their home. So, but as far as I understood my life at this time, I required the opposite equation. Work would be something I jogged along with love. See, here now this thing, how he puts work at secondary place and love at the first place. So he thinks like for a man what is needed, or for a human what is needed. It is needed the love. Work and all the things are secondary. But what happens in the latter part that he thinks the work is more important, the love is not, because love is he considers this love and sex a bit kind of mingled thing. But as far as I understood my life at this time, I required the opposite equation. Work would be something I jogged along with. So it is gonna be there anyhow. Love would be my life. So I will focus on love only because it is the life. Okay, and so here they live. Henry Road, AC 15. See now here, see when again reference comes of missionaries when they are living at their home at London, separate from their family village. Only the name of village is not given. The only Village is given. Only capital V. So they are living in London, and what happens is that the missionaries come. But Susan is very quite anti-religioustic person. She does not like religion as such. So what happens then? In conversation with him, who was that? Asked by our narrator Paul to Susan. Who was that? I asked as she passed my door. She looked in to see me. Missionaries. Susan replies, they were missionaries. So two people come to meet this Susan MacLeod, and they were missionaries. She replied, God damn and blast them, missionaries. So how she hates them, the religion. I let them get it all off their chest and then send them on their way. So I let them speak whatever they wanted to speak, whatever they wanted to preach rather than teach. So, and better to waste their puff on me than someone they might convert. So they are wasting their time on me because I'm not anyway going to be converted into the Christianity there, not actual missionaries. So now our narrator is telling not actual missionaries. He is questioning. It's a general term. Actual missionaries are the worst, of course. And but a few weeks later, we received a visit from a man called Morris. Now again, now see in the second part, the character of Morris is introduced. Morris, he is a ex-workman in this Royal News, Renault or Royal News, something comes like this. have you ever seen an electric? Now, see, it is an analogy given by him that how one thinks or how the thoughts of one is happening. Like, have you ever seen an electric log splitter in action? So, electric log splitter. So, the analogy is given. So, if anybody wants to read further or refer to the description or answer, they can go through the whole things. Fine. So, I'm just giving this. Isn't growing up a necessary process of losing one's innocence? Maybe. And he gives his life account. So. Now here we are again introduced that what happens. So after all these things, they are settling up in London, Henry Road, and what happens now? Susan becomes pregnant, and how they came to know about this like this. Johan said so. There was one phone call on the morning when Paul was sleeping. Now Johan said, now he is living with his. We can say now see while their stay in the London, uh, 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 our narrator moves to the home as well. So now their parents are not having any problem with him, and he time and again visits his house. And now his granny, or we can say granny, the mother of mother, Paul Roberts, she comes and she tells, okay, somebody was there on the phone, and Paul Robert comes down, and what happens then on the phone? Who was that? Joanne was there. Joanne said, the very rude voice of Joanne, it's Susan, get over there. She wants you, not me. You now, and she put the phone down. Whatever you say, but you will need now. What happens? So after phone, this person hurries, rushes that what happened to my Susan to see her. Now whatever now what happens? That Susan tells us, okay, drive me to some way. I will tell you, and don't ask me any single question that I'm not going to reply you anymore. Okay, then Paul Roberts believe in her, and he asked, whatever you say, okay, fine, I'll believe, but you will need to tell me roughly where we are going. Otherwise, how will I drive you to there? Head for self bridge. So go. Let us go or drive me to the self bridge. Are we in a hurry? I allowed myself that question. So he asked her. Just drive safely. Now, why she's telling just drive safely? Because she's having the this embryo, this in her womb of this pole. Just drive safely. We got to near Selfridges, and she directed me down Wigmore Street, then left upon those streets where private doctors practice. Now, why to go private doctors? Because at that time, what happened? This law of abortion. See here, its reference comes a terrible realization. Now Paul realizes what happened to this Susan. A terrible realization came in the second part. This comes. A terrible realization came upon me that the system had failed. That the system had failed. That she had found herself pregnant. Now she had found herself pregnant, and was even now dealing with the consequences. And was now and the abortion law was still going through parliament. Now, so nothing was decided whether women should be given the right. So recently, we are having right now. I'm talking about our Millie or the present senior that the abortion law, the League of Two Justice gave this thing to the medical authority that okay, the women have the right to abort the child, the children or child, whatever is there in her womb, within 732 days, like 7 months. Within that time, she can abort on her will. So no medical can take this decision. But here, what was happening at that time when Susan got pregnant, this the abortion law was still going through parliament. So that is why they are going private doctors practice. They are not going to any legal doctor because legal doctor will not do such things, abortion, but the private doctors will do, those who practice. And not just at the back street and who would perform procedures more or less on demand. So these things are there. The notion of being a father while he gives his self account said how my feeling was going through when I got to know that Susan is pregnant and she's having my child in a womb. The notion of being a father while still a student, struck me as terrifying and as crazy. But it also struck me as well, kind of heroic. Now it terrifies him. It makes him feeling. It gives him the feeling of the heroism, subversive yet honorable. So these things are given. See here, this episode comes as I realized I would never again be able to tape a rabbit teeth. Because why? See why these lines are coming. As I realized, Paul Robert, I realized I would never again be able to tape a rabbit teeth. So these teeth he's referring to will be the rabbit teeth. Why? Because when Susan goes home, because see in that time, this even in now times it is. I mean that when you are not living with your husband or a wife, then you possess the half of the homes possession under your possession. So still Susan visits her home, even if the Gordon is there. Now Gordon has no right to tell her, but still Gordon beats her. he practices this self-abuse or on her, on our Susan. So as I realized, I would never again be able to tap a rabbit because it was broken by the thumb of Gordon MacLeod when he beats Susan, long discarded in some Wimpole Street West Bin. As I understood that I now had greater responsibility than before. Now these things, when the lover is having child of yours, then you are having greater responsibility than the romanticizing things alone. One thing I never swerved from was the certainty that Gordon MacLeod's behavior was a crime of absolute liability, and his responsibility was also absolute. A man hits a woman. See, now this account is very interesting. See this. A man hits a woman. A man hits a woman. A husband hits a wife. So it is putting like it is a general rule that a man has to hit a wife when she is going out of the boundaries, and a husband hits a wife. A drunkard hits a sober spouse. So a drunkard hits a sober spouse. A drunkard is now our Gordon MacLeod, and he hits a sober spouse. Who is sober spouse? Susan MacLeod. There was no defense and no possible mitigation. Now, from here starts second person narration. Now it shifts it shifts to you. You means our protagonist again, Paul Roberts. You are an absolutist for love, and therefore an absolutist against Mary. See this, and how these interesting things are given, like how he compares marriage with so many things. So it is also given, like he compares with dog kennel, in which complacency lives and is never chained up. Like marriage is a jewelry box. Marriage is a jewelry box in which, so first he compares marriage with a dog kennel. So we can write this dog kennel, and secondly he compares it with the jewelry box. So why jewelry box? Which by some mysterious opposite of alchemy turns gold, silver, and diamonds back into base metal. So when you marry somebody, all your dreams are again put under the you can say earth. So nothing romanticized happens again when age passes. People are like these things happens with them. So they are getting fed up with each other, and they fight. They take divorce. So many things happen. So that is why it turns everything that is gold metal into the base. And third thing, marriage is a disused boat house containing an old two-person Kenny, no longer water with holes in the bottom and one missing pedal. Marriage is, oh, you have dozens of such comparisons to. And so right now we are getting three. The first is dog kennel, second is jewelry box, and third one is this boat house. Okay. Okay, you approve. This will be the start of the making of. See here now, Paul. When they are officially, like we can say, divorced, this Susan and Gordon. Now what happens? Now what Paul thinks at that time, you approve. That Paul approve. This will be Paul approves. This will be the start, the making of the new Susan. You try some gentle advice. Now he wants his love, Susan, to be something new. What of his liking? Okay. So again, the patriarchy is in his character. You realize that even if she is the free spirit you imagined her to be, even if she is the free spirit, she is also a damaged free spirit, as we saw. And you understand that there is a question of shame at the bottom of it. So, whatever free minded she be, or for that reason I loved her, but still there is a question, but she is shameful about what? About her personal originality and about the society like this. You understand there is a question of shame at the bottom of it, personal shame, that she is reluctant to mention that in front of people that she meets, and social shame that she feels okay. Even during their stay, when once Martha comes to visit them, they both, when they are going into London and they are buying a home, Martha comes and she tells, okay, so you are having two rooms in the attic, then you give it on the rent. So why she tells him? Because you will be camouflaged. The word is you will be camouflaged by the social shame. So nobody will think you both are having this relationship and these people are coming. So Eric comes and he gives that, okay, your wife or Susan is drinking from my whiskey, but he denies to believe. So these things are happening. And now let's go to the end of this part. Okay. Okay. So now he gives that how many types are of sex or the physical or consummation we can say. So there are two, but he is no only two are not the good and bad. There is said sex also. So what said sex is when you are fed up with your partner after having so many nights or going to bed. Then this happens like then you are not willing, but still to keep the person happy, you have to go to bed with her or him. So these things are given. So when desire returns, now what happens? So these things happens now suddenly. This not suddenly, but gradually we can say. Susan turns maid, and he puts her into the hospital or many under many treatments. Now, in absence of her, what he does is that when this is the last paragraph of the second part. When desire returns in men or in woman also, but here is the man, our narrator. You order up another prostitute. Now we started going to the prostitutes. Later, you have a Lebanese dinner. It's the dinner. You watch television, you lie on your bed deliberately, not thinking about Susanna or anything to do with her. You do not care how anyone might judge you if they could see where you are and what you are doing. So now he's reaching to the point where he is not feeling any more love with the Susan. Okay. So these things are happening. Okay. So it is the end of the second part. Here the second part ends. And the third part is very like short, we can say. Only 60 pages are given to it. This third part. Now it ranges from page number 161 to 212 end. So third person narration. Here we are finding majority of the narration is the third person. He is used for Paul. He sometimes this is the first starting paragraph, initial paragraph. He sometimes asked himself a question about life, which are truer, the happy memories or the unhappy ones. So here, when an old man tells the story, well, generally, and it is of the love especially. So now it is not the story of the good memories, the pleasant moments, but it is the unhappy memories. The unhappy memories, we can say. He decided eventually that question was unanswerable. Which question he is alluding to? The very first question that one should rather love or rather like this. So that the question was unanswerable. He had kept a little notebook for decades now. So he means our narrator. He was having an habit that keeping a notebook. What was he doing with the notebook? That great novelist. He kept the quotations of the great novelists, television sages, this television sages, or we can say televangelics in that time. Evangelic, and when they are coming and speaking on the television, they are called televangelic. So those who preach the Christian these dogmas, not dogmas like religion, like these things, self-help gurus. This self-help genre is also introduced. People he met in his years of traveling. He assembled the evidence, and okay, so he was having a kind of philosophical thinking here himself as well. So here is the oft quoted things is coming. So in his note, one entry in his notebook was, of course, it is better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. So generally, people we find here, we give this kind of, whether you are proposed to eat this laddu or some sweet, then it is better to eat and then to regret rather than not eating and regret. So these things. So it is better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. Now, Susan's might have slept a little more. Now, he himself is giving account that how Susan went mad or how she became mad. Susan's mind has slept a little more each time you see her. Short-term memory disappeared a while ago, and see, short-term memories disappeared. Now she is completely out of her mind due to because Susan turns very kind of very, you can say, abject drunkard. Abject drunkard. She even lies to Paul that okay, I want to drink, but I will not tell you. But Paul knows everything, and Paul does not tell her okay that I know everything, because when he tries to tell her, she becomes very angry. Okay, why are you telling me this? And Paul is having selfishness within himself. Okay, if I tell you the right thing, then you will leave me. Then I don't want to tell you the right thing. Go ahead and destroy yourself. These things he speaks there. That okay, despite knowing I know everything that she drinks and destroying herself, I would generally say go in my mind that go ahead and destroy yourself. Okay, so these things are told by him, and she sings some songs and some rhymes are there, lyrics, and cease to drink. Indeed, now these things are there. So better profile and. Hmm. So it is for the when you want to refer to in detail. So I have taken some important lines from the all the parts. So right now I'm not going through it, but when you want to refer to it, then you can go through this also. So now let me come down to my learning outcome. So after completing the novel, first thing I would say is that it is a kind of we cannot say it is completely a stream of consciousness thing, like, but the linking generally what happens in stream of consciousness, the narrator is telling, suddenly he or she, whoever is narrating or the author, goes jumps here to there, but what happens, there is no linkage provided at the end of that jumping. But here, whenever he jumped or whenever he digressed from the narration, he provided at the end of that narration, okay, this happened before 10 years or before Eric met me. So these things, especially the episode of beating Susan by her husband, this Gordon McLeod. So he tells after 10 or after 1 year when Eric came as our lodger. So this happened. So this linkage is also given there. So we cannot, like, he takes us digression and then he moves us back from where he started. This thing happened. And this the first learning outcome is the notion of afterlife and the myth that universe repeats itself. So we are having this in Ramayana myth, this Kak Bhusundi. He was a bird, or he was a person, like he was a sage bird, crow, that he was made free from the chain of time, that he cannot be enchained by the time. So he is able to see when earth dissolved and when it became flourish again. So it is the myth that, okay, earth dissolves and repeats itself. So when we are sitting here, it's 1,000 times again. So again these things will happen, again this thing will dissolve, it will destroy. So same thing will be repeated. So in case it also happens, like the notion of afterlife and the myth that universe repeats itself, this signifies the binary for multiple people. Why the binary is put? Like, let us go through this first. So you are not, I insist. Now who is telling this? Our Paul is telling, when Susan tells, okay, my uncle did Humphrey very bad things to me, and that is why I became frigid. But then Paul said, nah, you are not, I insist, you are not frigid. And with a bit of luck, the old bastard, this Uncle Humphrey, will be in a very hot place. Here, the hell, in their reference. If there is any justice. Now, if there is any justice, so the law of karma is also being applied here, that we find, okay, you are doing bad to me, the God generally will put you in the hell, or you will get born in the fire of the hell. So generally these things happen. But here what Susan says, because she's not believing in any religion, so what is there for her? There isn't. No, there is no type of any justice. She replies, there isn't any justice here or anywhere else. So here on the earth or anywhere else, in the heaven, hell, wherever, and the afterlife would just be an enormous bridge party with uncle. See, now this why. See, let me give you a kind of an analogy. There is a goat and a butcher. Okay, goat knows that these things are going to be repeated, that I am going to be slaughtered by the butcher, and butcher knows, okay, I have to slaughter this again and again. So now who is more happy? Butcher is more happy, because he has one given duty, that it is going to repeat it. I am not going to be slaughtered by this goat, I have to slaughter the goat. So I am happy because I will slaughter the goat, I will have the meat, and I will feed my stomach, and I will earn some money by selling some rest meat also. But it is good for the butcher. Now what happens in the binary, the butcher and the goat, it is good for butcher. Like here, it is good for Uncle Humphrey, that he will have his pleasure with Susan, but it is bad for the goat. That goat knows, okay, on the every time whenever the universe or the world is being created, and the same episode goes with me, and I have to be butchered, I have to be slain off by this butcher. So again, this Susan tells, okay, whenever the universe will be created, like just be like, and the afterlife would just be an enormous bridge party with Uncle Hump, beating six no trumps and winning every hand. See, if the universe is repeats itself. So now we have to see, it is not only if it repeats that it is good for somebody, then at the same time it is bad for something. Those who are pray and being prayed. So the second learning outcome is this: the breaking of classical myth of deeming upper class as civilized stratum, whereas lower class as uncivilized one. So here the word stratum is the singular form of strata. We are having social strata, economic strata. So stratum is the singular of the word strata. Okay. Upper classes. See now, this happens. So it is taken from the 31 part 1, page number 31. It was, I suppose, ignorance and snobbery on my part which had hitherto till now made me assume that domestic violence was confined to the lower classes, that it was only then when the lower class person will come and beat his wife. So many things. But now the Gordon is also beating, and Gordon is not belonging to the lower class person, he is very rich person. So it happens. So this norm, it is breaking down, that only lower class are beating their wives, and they are having some kind of kerfuffle within themselves. No, it's not so. Even these things happens in the this upper class family, aristocratic family as well. Uh, and this third one, the selfishness of one love. As I told you, that how he was selfish about his love, that if I tell the truth to Susan, then Susan will run away. That he does not tell, and he thinks this. You don't say anything except we have to live by two. So we have to live by two means they are planning to go to the this Brussels when Martha invites Susan. Okay, you are not feeling well there in the London, then come to Brussels. I will. Now what happens? You don't say anything except we have to live by two. By two means, like we will be departing for Brussels by 2 o'clock. You decide to let her go. You decide means you means Paul Robert decide to let Susan. Paul decide to let Susan go on destroying her life, because she keeps on drinking, and ultimately she loses her mind and she becomes completely, utterly, abjectly mad there. The art of, now this is the fourth. learning outcome, the art of interweaving milieu in forms of story within story. Here one good story is coming like this, one priest in the island, this story of Malta. The story of Malta is also there, like where the priest, where the island is there, where it is the island is under the authority of the church, and how when one woman is not having child, then they call priest. Priest comes on his cycle, and nobody disturbs them while they are in the room. Even the husband stays away from the home, and until the cycle is gone, and not so what they are telling, not the priest is gone, but until the cycle is gone, nobody interferes their relationship. So how they were, and what the childs were called, born out of the relationship of priest and the wife. The priest's child, or you can say the child of God, like in the family. Can you imagine that, Paul? Don't you think it is barbaric? See now, don't you think it is barbaric? This story is told to Paul by Susan. So Susan deems it is the barbaric, and she focuses on that there is no, like we can say, population control law on the island, because everything is under the authority of church, and church wants the wife to be engaged in the household work only, so that they do not interfere in the basic business of men, so they should be having more children. Even if the husband is incompetent, we will assist you in this. So this happens there. So it is the style of art of interweaving milieu, or social surrounding, we can say, in form of story within story, in story within story. So it also comes there. That is the last one, the fifth one, the summing. Summing means to counting, to have, like we can say, these things, the summing of one's deeds at the end of the day, in life, which most often leaves everyone in abyss of remorse and few streaks of happiness. Only few things are happening with everybody. Like they find, okay, many things happen bad to me, and only few things, fewer, far too few are very happy things to me. What he didn't or couldn't. Now it is the third person narration. In the third part, it is taken what he did not, our Paul. What Paul did not or couldn't tell Joan was Paul's terrifying discovery that love, by some ruthless, almost chemical process, could resolve itself into pity and anger. Now, whatever, see, this chemistry, the chemistry of love, it begins with the romance, it begins with the good thing. Now it results into pity and anger. Pity and anger. So, pity for oneself, that why have I loved somebody, and anger for the other, whom the love is made. So, these things are there, and it is the thing. And this was part of his same. So, page 7 and part 3 it is taken here. Hmm. So it was the part of the summary. And for the themes, I would like to invite our next colleague, Bhavna. Thank you so much.
So to deal with the topic of themes. There are a major theme of the novel. So love, loss, and self-delusion. In the novel, in the first-person narrative of the 19-year-old Paul, who meets and falls in love with 48-year-old Susan at a tennis club. Paul lives in the village, a stockbroker's belt, in an enclave 15 miles south of London. The only story explores themes of first love, loss, and self-delusion. It is paints a portrait of generation bands on whose ideals have floundered uh, over the course of the 20th and early 21st centuries. The novel was generally well received by critics who found it a somber but well conceived character study. And another theme of memory. So, in the novel, part 3 is a fictional construction of the narrator's past life by the help of his memory. Paul in part 3 reconstructs his memory through his imagination. This enables him to transfigure his memories into what he desired to have. He experiences a different kind of love, which is based uh, on shared singularity. He finally accepts the differences between himself and Susan. Thus, he tries to remember Susan's happy time. Susan happy, Susan optimistic. The whole story about memory of Paul, pain and fulfillment. In the stories, examination of the various contradiction and the challenge inherent within the concept of love. The narrative seeks to utilize Paul and Susan's relationship as demonstrating how fulfillment and some suffering are not only inevitable in a romantic relationship, but are also often simultaneous phenomena. The narrative first introduces this idea by opening the novel as follows. Would you rather love the more and suffer the more, or love the less or suffer the less? In this way, the narrative immediately draws a thematic connection between fulfillment and suffering that underlies the story of Susan and Paul's relationship. At first, the narrative highlights the passion and complete fulfillment that Paul experiences in the early stages of the relationship. I was 19 and I knew that love was incorruptible, proof against time and tarnish. Another theme of marriage. You are an absolute for love and therefore an absolute against marriage. You have given the matter much thought and come up with many fanciful comparisons. Marriage is a dog kennel in which complacency lives and is never chained up. And marriage is a jewelry box which, by some mysterious opposite of alchemy, turns gold, silver, and diamonds back into base metal, paste, and quartz. Marriage is a disused house containing an old 2% canoe no longer water-worthy, within holes in the bottom and one missing paddle. Marriage is you have dozens of such comparisons hand in gradually you realized that the marriage of Gordon and Susan McLeod was actually in far worse shape than any marriage among your parents' circle, and you became all the more absolutist in the Susan and Gordon McLeod's marriage are not good because Gordon is a violent person. And learning outcome, passion to achieve anything. In the novel, I can found the 19-year-old Paul and Susan meet tennis club, and 40-year-old Susan was uh, playing tennis, so the age is doesn't matter to achieve your passions, and no one trusted too soon. When in the novel, Paul was not help to Susan because Susan was addicted and suffering lots many things. So no, yes, so Paul was not take care of Susan and explicate habit of taking notes. And when I read the novel, so many reference in the story, like Eve and Adam connect with Paul and Susan. Then Oedipus he also connect with Paul and Susan. Then mad woman in attic, also Susan suffering from his life addiction, and Che Guevara is also connected with character of Gordon. So another part I would like to call maybe.
article, there are many book reviews, and this is one of the Julian Barnes review on his novel. The novel is experience of love itself, and among the other things, how difficult it is analyze the love, especially the first time, as we known in this Paul's character and immaturity of his character also. It has a bit like a putting in a new kitchen. He says you never get it right the first time. You always have that a bit of slate you shouldn't have, or the taps are in the wrong place, and then you redesign and have another kitchen, and there are different mistakes made. Okay, the only story to which Barnes alludes is, of course, the story of love, and for good or ill, everybody has such a story to tell. In the end, it reveals itself as the things that, most importantly, that has had a greatest impact, changing or transforming the course of a life, written in many years later, Paul's attempt to convey his own only story, and this sentence by Paul, I am the remembering the past, not reconstructing it. I am not trying to spin you a story, I am trying to tell you the truth. It is the most explicit reference in the realism of the novel, Embrace, spirited of a sentimentally and a most self-pity at times, uncomfortable yet never self-indulgently plain, indulgently. The only story comes from its psychological equity, it especially about how we remember in Paul's narrative experience deconstruct themselves and the personalities decay in the devastatingly convincing a way. It all seems terribly sad and horrible true. A definitive account how a romantic love becomes trapped in its own frame and emphasis itself of color and meaning. The Julian Barnes novel, The Only Story to 2018, can be read as a monograph on implications of love by focalizing the narrative situation and events through the consistently transforming perspective of a failed lover. Barnes shows how digging into past events through the awakening lens of memory can lead a previously a concert self-realization. So my learning outcome is how to tell a story, even it is a love story, with the love story of Susan and Paul. How he was Julian Barnes narrating the story. Human and his memory play the vital role. Age is doesn't matter in the love and sports in the literature. How they starting with the tennis player, both are a tennis player. Then starting this love story. Work citation. Thank you.